Flying into turbulence, what is the future of the national carrier Kenya Airways? Well, that is a question I'll be posing to Chief Executive Officer Mbuvi Ngunze later on this program. And of course, we'll be joined by Edwin Chui. He's a senior analyst at Dyer and Blair. Of course, we'll be looking at the market statistics. Good evening and thank you for joining us. This is the Trading Bell. And of course, remember, the market history is also coming on this program. But for now, let's chat with Mbuvi Ngunze, Chief Executive Officer, Kenya Airways. Thank you. Nice to meet you.
To meet you too. Thank you.
Very good. So, I want first of all to find out from you, you're leaving KQ in a few weeks' time from now. What would you say is your biggest legacy to date?
Why do you want to talk about legacy before I have departed?
Well, because unless you have decided to change your mind.
No, I think we're still on the road to recovery in a lot of ways, and I'd rather not look at it about legacy because for me it's a contribution of a lot of people. But the fact that we have continued to fly against all odds, against all the pundits' expectations, is a remarkable thing. A lot of effort from more than close to 4,000 people within KQ. For me, that's a beautiful thing I'll leave behind.
And are you comfortable with the current status of KQ now?
You never are comfortable when you know you're in the middle of a turnaround. A turnaround is a very deliberate effort. It's not a sprint, it's a marathon. You plan things and you go very deliberately executing them. We're in the right place, but there's still things to execute, and I'm sure you will ask me some of those things we are doing.
Very well. I mean, a lot of things have been said about KQ, but first of all, I want to commend KQ. I think that was last month where it was voted by TravelStat as the third in Africa in terms of time management, with a rating of about 60%,
67%, yeah.
And it's good for an African airline and of course for KQ.
No.
You wouldn't say the same?
Not satisfied, no.
Of course not satisfied.
Because actually what happened in the last year, our on-time performance declined. And there's a reason why, because we were in the 74% the year before, but there's good reasons for that. But it's still recognition that despite that decline, we are still recognized in terms of our on-time performance.
And when you look at the African market, and we know for sure that you have a lot of emphasis on the African market, what potential do you see?
So Africa is a mixed bag, and it's not homogeneous. Every year in Africa there's 4 or 5 elections, so there's always potential of disruption. At the same time, Africa is still probably the lowest density traveling public there is globally. So we will only be we could only grow from a low base. The third thing I would say is that the youth potential. If you look at the demographics of Africa, cities are growing. The fastest growing urban cities in the world will grow in Africa. In terms of trade, investment, all that will evolve and will have a direct impact on the potential for flying. Countries are all making investment in infrastructure in relation to aviation. There is more of us creating city pairs in African countries, you know, KQ flying from point X to Y in Africa. So that will stimulate traffic. If I draw a parallel, look what we've done in Kenya we had KQ mainstream flying for the longest time. 3 years ago, we created Jumbojet. Jumbojet stimulation in the market has been plus 30% each year. And 30% of those are first-time travelers.
First-time travelers.
Yes.
So, would we be right to say that the growth, the what do we call the hope for growth for KQ lies in Africa?
At our core purpose, it's a sustainable development of Africa. So the fortunes of KQ are totally tied with Africa. There is no question about that. Today, 60% of our revenue is in Africa. And even in our refocusing of our strategy, it's clear Africa is at the center. Because if we win in Africa, then we will be able to win in connecting Africa to the rest of the world. If I look at the stimulation factor that we are giving, even in an environment where commodity prices have created a subdued demand, we are still growing in Africa today. So yes, I mean, I think Africa is really going to be important for the future for KQ.
And we know that for the continent of Africa, with about 54 countries, we only have about 3 or 4 airlines that we can talk about, and KQ is one of them. And I do not know, for whatever reasons, we don't take notice of these. I want to hear from you. What is the future of KQ?
So, from my perspective,
yeah,
KQ's future is sound. We are 40 years young, having just celebrated our 40th birthday last month. Where we are today, if you look back to the evolution of KQ, not dissimilar to other carriers globally, you have all these cycles. You grow, you develop, things happen along the way. Could be a down cycle because of economy, could be other cycles. If I look at this cycle that we've been in KQ, the biggest challenge for us was that we modernized our fleet. We invested in growth capacity on the back of a period 2002 to 2011 where we more than increased our turnover 4 times. So it was very sensible and logical that we actually grow the business, we modernize. And then we were caught in a perfect storm. 2011 was the last peak of tourism in this country. We are right at the heart of supporting tourism and bringing numbers into Kenya. Kenya went into Somalia around that period, and we know the crisis that has happened since then in the tourism sector. We had Westgate, we had a fire at the airport, we had Ebola. All those things happened. Now, we quickly forget that all those things have sentiment and impact in terms of traffic that connects through here, traffic that originates from here. So that's one part. But commercially also, we probably did not prepare well enough for the onslaught of competition into Africa. And with this scenario, as well as the onslaught of competition, it has had a big impact on KQ. So as part of our refocusing, what we've done in the last year and a half, we focused on 3 things. We said, how do we get ourselves back to profitability? Looking at our P&L, what revenue actions, what cost actions. And the turnaround is beginning to show, as we demonstrated in the half-year results. 2, how do we keep our business model relevant, agile, focusing on Africa, focusing on the right partnerships across outside Africa to make sure that we are able to serve that capability that probably we were unable to serve because we had capacity we had brought in and we had to take out that capacity. We've removed 7 wide-body aircraft in the last year and a half, but we still fly largely the same network, and even with fewer aircraft, we are flying more people. And then the third thing is how do we finance this business short-term, and how do we finance it in the long term? And this is where we said that in July we announced that we're in the middle, and we are still in that process of a major financial or balance sheet restructure to be able to reduce the overall debt structure of KQ and to allow KQ to grow it up into its valuation.
And when you're talking about, financing, when you look at the African markets, all the big 5 airlines, they are state-owned. You're talking about SAA, Ethiopian Airline, Air Maroc, Egypt Air. Is it high time that we consider the shareholding of KQ to give the government more shares so that when in distress, we can always rush to treasury?
I think the solution is not necessarily either government shareholding or not government shareholding, because there are great examples out there of government companies or government held companies that are doing well. There are great examples there, or bad examples, of government held companies that are doing badly. The point is, in an industry like ours, which is strategic, and when you look at it globally, and you need to look at the different hubs that have developed over time, look at the Middle East, look at Singapore, look in Europe, how those hubs have developed. They've developed on the basis of a very clear alignment between government on the one hand and the aviation sector. And it's not only about KQ, it's about making sure those two, because airport, civil aviation, government policy, then the airline, because those things go aligned. We here have worked very hard as KQ to build a hub There's policy alignment, and I can confirm that actually government is much more involved right now in creating the conditions of the environment for success, step by step. But don't forget, we're also a liberal country.
Yeah.
If you look at our neighbors up north, the situation is very different. You don't have the same level of penetration of competition as you do here. And so we are in the situation we are in, and we have to make the best of the situation while focusing on where the niches that drive value for us.
And we have also heard from the chairman and also from Parliament that it is high time. We also looked at the agreement between KQ and KLM. Would you advise for such to happen?
I would say all agreements are constantly being evaluated. Remember, KQ and KLM have two different arrangements. The first one is a commercial agreement, which is about how do we do business together between East Africa and Europe. And the second one is a shareholder agreement between government and KLM. And I think the point for me is more, how do we bring it to the current realities? On the business side, we are always evolving that conversation. And so those things have happened just as a matter of course. On the shareholding side, the conversations happen, but some of what is quoted as shareholding controls actually do not exist, because agreements were written 20 years ago, but the governance environment in Kenya changed radically, so actually they don't apply.
Good. We have to wind up, but before we do so, I want to find out from you, the push to introduce open air policy in Africa. I want to hear from you, how is this likely to impact your business? And finally from you, do you think we as Kenyans, we judge KQ harshly?
Okay. So the first question around open skies in Africa. Open skies in Africa conversation is around how do African carriers get control of the skies in Africa. And I think it's good because long term it's part of the AU Vision 2063, which is critical in terms of how do you deepen travel in Africa. There are certain regulatory things that have to be dealt with, but in general for us, very supportive because we fly into a lot of these places and we like to deepen that conversation. The second question was around criticism of KQ. I would say, for me, KQ is at the core of the economy, vertically integrated, delivering employment, delivering value. The farmer in Nanyuki, in Naromoro, in Naivasha depends on KQ. We are the largest restaurant in Kenya. We serve more than 11,000 meals daily. We carry cargo, more than 160 tons of cargo. Nairobi is probably in Africa, because of its location and because of KQ, the most connected city in Africa, if you look at it on a per capita basis. So the value addition to the economy is very clear.
Good. Thank you very much, Mbuvi, for joining us here. And of course, we wish you well and KQ well too.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Pleasure.
All the best.
Cheers.
Thank you very much. Kenya Airways Chief Executive Officer Mbuvi Ngunze joining us here on the Trading Bell to help us understand the status of KQ and of course where it is heading from there. This is the Trading Bell. We'll take a short break and thereafter we'll be back. Stay right here. Edwin Chui is a senior research analyst at Dyer & Blair, joining us here on the Trading Bell to help us put those figures in perspective. Thank you very much indeed, Chui, for joining us.
You're welcome.
For the first time in many months, we have seen the NSE 20 share index, which is like the heartbeat of the market, breaching the 3,000 mark.
Yeah.
Why is this? Or what has happened?
Well, we are just about to get into the earnings season, the heaviest earnings season this year. You've seen Barclays has reported their results, BAT, We expect the rest of the banking sector, the insurance sector,
Mm-hmm.
and later on investments, telecom to report.
Mm-hmm.
So what you looking at is movement, especially towards good dividend payers like Barclays Bank,
Mm-hmm.
BAT.
Mm-hmm.
So that's probably the main reason why the market has shifted.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
But of course, of concern is the fact that the market capitalization has not moved as fast as one would imagine, bearing in mind that in the last 1 week it has just improved by about 0.50 percentage point.
Yeah, well, it's because the price levels are still comparatively low,
Mm-hmm.
but that is likely now to rise as prices go up.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Let's have a look at the top gainers, and you have seen it on the screen. And interestingly enough, Kenya Airways Limited, moving with the highest margin so far at 23.47 percentage change. Why is this the case? Moving from 4.90 to 6.05. What is so fundamental about this move?
Actually, there is nothing fundamental yet that has been reported, but there is an expectation. There is all these things that are likely to happen, beginning with the news that they are going to be replacing the chief executive with a more substantive chief executive.
Mm-hmm.
The fact that they are likely to revisit their agreement with KLM.
Mm-hmm.
We saw in the news that they discontinued their partnership with McKinsey,
Mm-hmm.
opting to put it on a need basis. So all these kind of events, let me call them events, are
Mm-hmm.
likely to encourage buying of the stock, which will push the stock up.
Mm-hmm.
But I think I encourage a buying for the long term, because we can expect the chairman, Mr. Michael Joseph, to do most of what is needed to get done.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And of course, when you go to the top losers counter, of course you encounter with Sanlam Kenya.
Yep.
And we know what has been happening, issuing a profit warning,
Yes.
then thereafter withdrawing the warning.
Yes.
But still, the share continues to plunge by a whopping 11.50%.
Well, I believe that part of the change has been as a result of a shift in accounting.
Mm-hmm.
It's what we've seen with other companies before, Britam sometime last year. So the change is probably more a paper change than real change.
Mm-hmm.
And I suspect that people have internalized that. So maybe that's why there's no shift in the price.
Mm-hmm.
And also we know that a key source of income of our insurance companies,
Mm-hmm.
investment income, that draws from mainly equities, and we know we've been having an equities bear run for now 2 years.
Mm-hmm.
So there's an expectation that the earnings are not going to be as good
Mm-hmm.
as you would expect to encourage a rise in prices.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
From where you sit, or maybe stand,
Yep.
which are the stocks to watch in the next 1 week?
In the next 1 week, depending on earnings reportings, I think we should be looking at the banks mainly.
Mm-hmm.
And specifically, we should be looking at, Equity Bank, KCB, Cooperative Bank,
Mm-hmm.
because these are banks that are actually most likely to benefit or to have benefited in the short term from the interest rate cap, because they had all the tools in place to benefit from a focus on volumes as opposed to margins.
Mm-hmm.
So they are likely to report a spike in top-up applications, which means more loans,
Mm-hmm.
which even may mean an improvement in performance for some of them. So in the banking sector, definitely Equity Bank, definitely KCB and Cooperative Bank. We've already seen Barclays, there was a decline in profits,
Mm-hmm.
but they were able to sort of maintain their payout.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So those are the 3 stocks to watch.
Yeah.
Edwin Chui, thank you very much indeed for joining us here on the Trading Bell and sharing us with your insight. Well, this is the Trading Bell. Thank you very much. And of course, we'll be back with more. Stay right here.
How do people make money on NSE?
Investors make money on NSE in two ways. Number one, buying when stock prices are low and selling when stock prices are high. Number two, investing in stocks of companies that pay dividends. So they make money when they receive dividends.
Man, oh man, a historical perspective of the Nairobi Securities Exchange, of course, bringing us to the end of Trading Bell this evening. Thank you very much indeed. Always remember, we welcome your questions or compliments. Of course, you can get through us. Our SMS line is 22162. Always remember to start with the word biz, that is B-I-Z. Our Twitter handle is at The Trading Bell, and Facebook page is Trading Bell TV Show. Join the conversation. #Trading Bell. My name is O'Brien Kimani. Thank you very much, and I will take you back to Broadcasting House for Business Insight. From me and the rest of the crew, have yourself a good night.